Adapting a fan fiction to an original work is way more complicated than just swapping out names. If you just do that, you'll, well, possibly wind up becoming a cultural phenomenon and getting your own major motion picture, but, anyway. Hi, I'm Jillian Maria, and many of you know that I'm self-publishing my debut novel, The Songbird's Refrain, in September. It's going to be available for pre-order at the end of the month. But what many of you may not know is that The Songbird's Refrain is actually based on a fan fiction I wrote back in college. So let's address the elephant in the room. I know that fanfics turned original works get a bad reputation. And sure, considering some of the more popular ones, that reputation is not exactly undeserved. But I think that it is possible to adapt a fan fiction into an original work and do it well and do it ethically. And I've got 4 tips to help you do that. Tip 1, change the things not original to you and be thorough. So this is kind of the obvious one, right? You change the names of your characters, you change the names of settings, and I suggest you go even further than that. If you want to really adapt things, you should change the concepts that aren't unique to you. Look, no matter how original or alternate universe your fanfic is, and I'm assuming that it's plenty of both, otherwise why would you want to make it an original work? There will be things that are inspired by the source material. For example, when I was first converting The Songbird's Refrain from its fanfic roots, there were a lot of things that I probably could have kept the same. A lot of it was AU, or it was so general that it couldn't be tracked back to the source material, but I erred on the side of caution, and not just because I was afraid of getting sued. You see, when you're writing fanfic, you're including all of these nods to canon and things like that. And those things are super fun in the context of fanfiction because people get excited to see that stuff. But they're not gonna get excited to see that stuff in your original work. So don't be afraid to really get in there and make big changes just because you can. So just to give you an idea of the initial work that I did, The Songbird's Refrain has a very big bird motif. As you can see, the main character is locked in a bird cage. She grows feathers. It's in the title, it's a thing. And none of that existed in the fanfic. While the main character was locked in a cage and forced to sing in front of an audience like Elizabeth is, she wasn't in a bird cage and she grew flowers, not feathers, from her skin. The setting was also very different. It was a creepy circus, not a weird traveling art exhibit like it is now. Now, creepy circuses are not exactly unique to the source material. I decided to change it because I liked the idea that I'd come up with better. So those are the sorts of changes that you'll be making in your initial planning phases. Tip 2 is to take a look at your characters. When you're writing a fanfic, it's only natural that you'll want to include your favorite characters, or most of the main cast, or the fan favorites. Whatever your reason, this will usually lead to you having characters who don't actually contribute anything to the plot. And in a fanfic, that's fine. They're just there for fans to be like, oh, cool, that character, I like that character. But obviously, this doesn't apply to original works where no one knows who your characters are yet. So it's important that you cut out the ones that aren't serving the plot anymore. For The Songbird's Refrain, I wound up cutting 9 characters from fanfic to draft 1. There were 3 characters kept in cages with the main character for basically no reason other than to honor the source material. There were 2 fake magicians who didn't do anything, and 4 clowns who sort of functioned in the same way that the crew does now, except they had names and personalities that ultimately did nothing for the plot. So away they went. I also discovered that 2 characters basically fulfilled the same function as the antagonist's right-hand woman, so I combined them into 1 character. That's Bridget, for those of you who have read it. And 3 characters basically fulfilled the function of offering weird, cryptic clues to the protagonist, so I combined them into Madame Celine. Although I did sort of leave the other 2 there as the poetry women, but they have a separate function now. And that's the sort of changes you can expect to make if you really look through your cast list. There's probably going to be at least a few characters that you can cut. Tip 3 is to make a reverse outline. A lot of fanfics are sort of meandering. Sometimes you start a plot line only to abandon it when you realize it's not what you want to write. Sometimes you start out writing what you think is a straight horror story, only to realize that it's more of a thriller suspense about 80% through the book. So now you have all of these plot beats that are totally inconsistent with your ending because you decided to diverge from what you had planned at the last second. Guess which hyper-specific one that I did. But yeah, okay, seriously, making a reverse outlining your fanfic, can help you identify the plot threads and the beats that won't work in the original work. And it's okay if it takes you time. I can tell you that there was one plot beat around the 70% mark that I intended to keep the same as the fanfic, only to change my mind at the last second while writing draft 1. And now I think that's one of the strongest beats in the entire book. In other words, I'm not at all coming for pantsers. This isn't me telling you that you have to outline or have everything figured out before you start. This is just a good way to make sure that you can cut out the stuff that doesn't work early. Which brings me to the last tip, tip 4. Tip 4 is to treat your fanfic like a first draft. If I could give writers one piece of advice, it would be this. Don't be too married to your fanfic's plot. Change things, not because you're worried about plagiarism, but because you realize that it'll make a better story. Offer your work to critique partners and beta readers and change things based on their feedback too. This is the process I went through for the Songbird's Refrain, and I can honestly tell you that I have never been prouder of anything I've written, ever. And that's because I've grown as a writer while writing it. And you should let yourself grow as a writer while writing your original work too. That's all the advice I have for you. If you're adapting a fanfic or thinking about adapting a fanfic into an original work, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to drop a comment below or hit me up on social media. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, bye. Sometimes you start it without knowing how it's going to end. My cat is currently burrowing under the covers and it's very cute. Oh, hello. Hello. Okay. She's just gonna hang out there, I guess. There is a lump in the blankets. Can you see it? Can you guess what it is? It's a cat. But I think I lost where I'm at. Oh well. I'm gonna pretend like I said that like a normal person because I can't do that sentence again. Oh my god. What are you getting into? Pet owner life. Jesus.